Hello everybody, welcome to Dr. Zero Show. Today I have two guests, Steffi Siegert from Södertörn University and Anton Hasselgren from Jönköping University. Welcome Steffi, welcome Anton.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
us. I would like to discuss about academia, of course, because of your line of work and what you do. Steffi, I would like to start with you. What do you think the way that academics or some type of academics are using the language at academia?
So I think language is, and I assume not only in academia, but this is the context we know, right? Yes. Language is used as a way to express status, but also to exclude and indicate who is part of the in-group. And I think it's used in different ways and on different almost levels. One of it is, of course, I am a foreigner in this country. And in the beginning, when I didn't speak the language, the native language was definitely used to exclude the immigrants from decision-making, from understanding processes. So there's always this aspect, like how is consciously or subconsciously a certain group excluded from important decisions. But then language is also used as a signifier of status. And that I have met multiple times when people comment on how I express myself. Not so much.
Can you give some example, like?
Yeah, absolutely. I was told at a conference, for example, by a more senior academic that the way I speak is not very academic.
Yes. Like, do you have different, is it the some phrases that you're supposed to use, or the way that you stand, or hand gestures? What does he mean?
And this is, I think it's a very good question. That academic in particular was very offended by my use of coarse language. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I generally don't use coarse language in presentations at conferences. But when I hang out with other academics, then yes, because I am not only an academic, I come from a social class that speaks differently. And I don't want to hide that. But I think in academia, there's this assumption to a certain extent, and that probably is also historical, because the members of academia they came from the middle class, the upper class, the upper middle class. Is this the pet text?
Oh, hi. You are not supposed to show a cat during an academic discussion. You don't act like an academician.
Absolutely not. It helps with the attention of the students, though. So, and I think there is a certain way of speaking when you are growing up in the middle class or the upper class. You don't use coarse language. Coarse language is often associated with the working class. And someone that uses coarse language in an academic context is breaking social expectations.
I also noticed that, like, during like some meetings or some interviews when academicians speak, they use a jargon. There are simpler words if the main idea is to convey the message, to communicate with the society, or to talk about your research. Why do you use so long sentences with different jargons that makes it difficult people to understand? Like, as you said, maybe like to show the status.
And this is definitely, I would say, the third layer of exclusion. Academics have a tendency to make academic knowledge almost inaccessible to the, I'm using this phrase loosely, but the outside world.
To aliens or?
Yeah. Even though we are fundamentally working toward the betterment of society. I mean, this is part of our job description. We're so enamored with our jargon and showing that we are so incredibly smart So we have to use long and complicated words that no one else will understand. So I think the use of language as a way to exclude works on different levels or in different ways.
Yeah, Anton, do you have any comment about this?
I think it's very interesting what you're saying, Steffi, and it reminded me of research papers that I think are really, really good, and they all have in common that they are very clear in their language, not using this overly complicated language. So that's interesting. I think that tends to be just one group of academics, and I'm sure a majority, but one group of academics that feel the need maybe to, what's the word, to kind of assert their status in the academic world, using these very complicated words to show how intelligent and cool they are, and it is very exclusionary, I think, and that's a problem also for new people coming into academia, seeing this, feeling threatened by this, but also thinking that this is the way it's supposed to be. You have to express yourself in this way in order to be part of the in-group or fitting in the academic environment. So I think that's very interesting.
Also, I relate to what Steffi said. For example, in a couple of occasions, let's say there is a conference and there is a technical glitch, and then I help to solve it. So instead of people saying, "Oh, good that you have technical knowledge in addition to your presentation, your academic status," they say, "Oh, you look like practitioner." What do you mean practitioner? Because I know something more than that, and I am at the same conference as you are. I mean, why do you think it is something lower when I do something more additional? So it is interesting way of to decide the border, to present the border, but to find a way to exclude you. Is it true, Steffi? Like you use language in a way to exclude?
I would definitely say so. And it depends on the context, which group academics, I should probably say we, are trying to exclude. In the example that Anton mentioned, we're trying to make it really hard to newcomers to feel like they belong, to feel like they are comfortable in the environment we are creating. Because this is not some magic that happens, right? We're part of this.
Of course.
And it is our responsibility to change that also. So I can definitely relate to what Anton said. I remember, like, not just my first seminar at university, I sat there and I realized that I did not understand about half of the words used. And that was my native language. It was disheartening. Yes, it was disheartening. And I looked around, I was like, okay, I hope someone else feels similarly.
But is it because you didn't know terminology? Or is it because the way the language used? I just want to clarify it. Maybe it is new domain, you don't know the terminology, you need to educate yourself. Or
I definitely think part of it was what we've talked about before, the jargon. It was very important for that particular lecturer to use the most difficult words he could find. Because in the first seminar, and I mean, it was clear that it was the first seminar for all of us.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you could have made it more inclusive, right? You could have eased people into the jargon.
Yeah,
but
it is not. Okay.
And I think that also that's probably a good strategy, right? I mean, the terminology in itself can be kind of intimidating, and there is a lot to learn to kind of get into a subject and understand what's going on, even if the language is clear. So this just adds another layer of complexity to it, which is completely unnecessary, and I guess it's just a status thing, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's not.
Please continue, Steph.
I'm sorry. I definitely think it is part of it is jargon, but in this particular context, it was an indicator of social class. I didn't have some of the vocabulary that he used. And I met that even in my PhD, when there it was a lot more jargon, because I had 5 years to pick up on all the words I didn't know before. But there's still this, I don't know, there's also the way of how people express themselves. And yeah.
Anton, related to what Steffi said, like there are expectations from researchers, especially new PhD candidates. Can we talk about these expectations based on your experience, or not your experience, but your observations?
Yeah, of course. And I think this, what Steffi and what we have been discussing here just now, ties into this next topic very nicely, I think, because it's all about expectations. What we discussed now with the language is also about expectations. And I mean, it's about you being expected as a PhD student or coming into academia to kind of join this academic club, and it has its own sort of rules of conduct that you need to kind of subscribe to. Those include language that we discussed earlier, and I think for me, what I've realized more, or what I've experienced more personally, it's also about, I don't know what name to put on it, but maybe expectations of overworking. So I've had several experiences during my PhD studies time where I've been basically shamed for not working weekends, shamed for taking vacation during summer. So there's these expectations on you, and I think especially as a PhD student, to work all the time and basically be overworked. That's the identity, and that's what you have to do to be a good PhD student.
I would like to add, this is what you have to do to be successful.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't think you need to do this to write a good dissertation. But the fact is that, I mean, senior faculty noticed me where I was talking about, oh, I'm actually going to go home and rest for this weekend. And that was picked up by senior faculty, and they shamed me
Really?
for it. So, I mean, I don't think it had negative consequences for my career, but it could have.
But
Definitely.
was it a joke, or was it like serious? Oh, how come you can have vacation?
It was serious, definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to add to this. It doesn't really matter to me if it was if they pretended it was a joke.
Okay.
I mean, this is irrelevant. It shouldn't be commented on that an employee of the university is having a weekend.
Mm. And it's also, I think, related to this kind of in-group discussion that we have had recently. And I mean, there's a very clear hierarchy going from senior faculty on top and PhD students. So you have all of these running jokes, right? PhD students should make all the coffee for all the senior faculty, all that type of standard stuff going on. And what that means also in terms of expectations is that basically it's the senior faculty who is the in group. And you as a PhD student, you're supposed to work your ass off just to get into this in group. And you're supposed to do whatever it takes to be part of that in group. And that in group is defined by language, as we discussed, and other things as well. And then you're just expected to want to do anything to get to that point, basically.
Yeah. I want to also say that like the expectation that we like they want you to be available 24/7, not only for research but like for the lectures, for the comments, to communicate with students, and then apply for funding all the time, as if that there is no other life. But actually we should treat it as a regular job. If it is a regular job, of course it is different, there's an intellectual level, but I think maybe there is this level in every other jobs also. So it is not like something unique for us, like for doctors, for engineers, for even postmen, because you are the, if you look, oh, you are letting people to access the knowledge. You send their important letters. You know, if you are a postman, maybe you label it with something much more important or meaningful. But I see we are creating an unnecessary tension, especially for new PhDs, by demanding them to work 24/7, and it doesn't help, because if you look at, I had read a lot, like many people quit from PhD. If there are many people quitting from PhD, it is not good. Many people have some psychological problems. Even if this few, it is not good. So we need to discuss what are we doing to these young, ambitious, energetic PhD candidates that they think they quit or they quit. What are we doing that they start to have psychological problems? They need to take some help. So it shouldn't be only random, that it is their mistake. What type of environment that we are creating? So it is interesting. Steffi, do you want to add anything about this?
Yes, the busy culture that you're kind of fostered into, it continues with senior academics, and it continues in some departments, definitely, that there are comments even among the more senior faculty where they're almost bragging about how much they're working. But you also see it at conferences, and you see it when you meet other academics that are they're so in love with their own busyness that they forget that there is actually a life outside of academia, and that it also has consequences. What kind of academics do we become if we work 24/7? If we lose touch with the society that we're supposed to help to become better, that we're supposed to improve?
I have a question to you, Steffi. Are these people because I start to notice with some people, I know they have been partying, but they were not informing anybody, but they pretend that they work a lot, or they have been reading all these articles, because when I ask details about articles, they cannot answer. So is it like, are they faking, or are there some people that are working 24/7?
This is a very good question. I think there are definitely some people that are faking. And it's very much about, how late can I send those emails so that everyone will believe I'm still working at 10 p.m.
Wow.
But
Is it a strategy also?
yeah, absolutely, it's a strategy. But some of it is also just that people forget that this isn't something we should praise. There are actually people that work nonstop. It's almost like they flee from the rest of their lives into work. And yes, I understand. I mean, sometimes, the rest of life sucks. I mean, we all survived 2020 in some way or another.
Yes.
But I don't know, maybe we shouldn't make that the kind of standard that we hold everyone accountable to.
Yes, there is. I can relate it to this entrepreneurship. We created a toxic environment that we expect startup founders and employees to work 24/7. And I remember there was one founder who visited Sweden, and then she just looked at people were leaving around 5, 6. She said, "Oh, my employees in US are working till 10, 12." So I just said, yes, but if they are working till 10, 12, then which means they have to pay their invoices at home. They have to call their wives, kids, partners, husbands at jobs, so they cannot have lives. So there is we create actually in a way that an environment that is not true, or maybe they shouldn't be the optimum, because you may have some period that you work too much. It is understandable. It is funding application or some couple of months, but you should have life outside of academia. This is the same for many other environments. Anton,
Yeah.
you were saying something?
Yeah, I think that's very broadly summarizing it. That is basically the expectation, is to give your entire life to academia already from the start, and just keep giving it. Working 24/7, being completely mobile in terms of changing, your country from a year to another, working
Yes.
under very insecure conditions. You're basically supposed to give it your all, and there is no alternative really right now. That is the expectation, and I don't think it should be,
You
basically.
point to something very interesting. They expect full devotion
Yeah.
from academicians, but when it comes to academic positions, we have scarcity. All the time you are supposed to go for, after PhD, go to postdoc 1, postdoc 2, postdoc 3, work as a lecturer in country A, country B, country C, as if that you would never have a family life or a kid or a partner,
Mm.
maybe. Forget about all these things. Let's say I want to go to a training to a regular gym club, fitness
Mm.
club, not during COVID-19 times. You cannot go because you are living in the middle, or you have to change. So, let's say you go to karate, there are different levels. You have to change country all the time. How can you, you, like, like, how can you
Yeah.
handle these if you have to change every year? I know some people, they are doing their third postdoc, you know, they are working as a lecturer, even though on paper they are supposed to work, I don't know, 60%, but they have too many things to do, 100% that they don't have time for research. And when they apply for research, it happened in France in one university. When they employ you, they say, oh, how many publications do you have? If you have top ranking journal publication, then you are supposed to work less, so you have more time for research. But of course, if you are new PhD, just graduated, it is very rare that you have top ranking publications. Maybe there are some very people that are lucky in the nice research group and they could define very quickly, they had good data and they were able to publish. But majority of them are not. So I asked that person, if you have this type of hiring policy, how do you expect new researchers to be able to publish, because you don't give them time to do research? So she didn't have answer. What was funny, then I asked, when did you come up with this hiring process? She said, oh, just last year. So the seniors were not employed like this. So
Yeah.
most probably, I mean, it shouldn't be like this. We have all this knowledge to create a nice environment for employees, but I think we are excluding academicians from the knowledge that we have. Steffi, do you have any comment about this expectation?
It's like the ones that are already sitting on the safe chairs. They're basically pushing up the ladder. It's so frustrating, and I completely agree with you. I have moved country more times than I think is reasonable. And I mean, obviously, I have a pet. I have a cat. She hates it. So
Of
we're always
course.
thinking, and we're always thinking about, well, yeah, but if you have a family, even if you don't have a family, what does it matter? I mean, I have friends, I have a social life. I don't want to move country all the time. I don't want to feel rootless.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we should talk about these issues more. What type of challenges are there for in the academia, especially for young academicians, and how can we create a better environment for academicians, because we are serving to society. I just want to highlight these problems are not exclusively in academia. It exists in other domains as well, other businesses. But since we know we have some level of knowledge in academia, we want to raise issues. We just don't want to hide it. I think it's good that we talk so that decision makers or people are aware. They can make some policy change, or they can introduce some measures that we can have a better environment. I would like to thank you, Steffi, for your time, and thank you, Anton. It was great to have you, and
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you for having us.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.